Whoever buys this ranch gets her for free." Sheriff Wade Mitchell's voice cracked like a whip over the heads of the gathered men, and the yard of the McAllister place exploded in cruel laughter. It was July 1883 in the Wyoming Territory, hot enough that dust clung to sweat and boots grounded into powder. Half the territory seemed to have ridden out to Bitter Springs for the foreclosure auction of the McAllister Ranch. 1,500 acres of good grass, a stone house that still stood proud, a barn solid enough to weather another 20 winters, and a creek that ran even in August. But all eyes were not on the land. They were on the girl the sheriff had just dragged out like unwanted livestock. Mercy McAllister stumbled down the porch steps, her hands bound in front of her, the rope jerking cruelly at her wrists. At first glance, she was only a blur of torn calico and pale flesh. But once the men got a good look, the comments started. "Good Lord, she's big as a freight wagon. Wouldn't call that a girl. That's a whole herd. She'll eat you out of house, home, and 2 counties over." Mercy heard every word. At more than 350 pounds, she took up space in a world that never let her forget it. Her cheeks were mottled with old and new bruises, one eye still yellowed from where a deputy's backhand had landed. Her long, dark blonde hair hung in tangled ropes, as if no one had let her near a comb for days. She lifted her chin anyway. She would not cry, not here, not in front of men who would gladly drink her tears. "This here is Mercy McAllister," Mitchell announced, turning to the crowd like a ringmaster presenting a freak. "Late Henry McAllister's granddaughter and so-called caretaker. Since she can't pay his debts, she's legally bound to the new owner. Think of her as an extra, a plow horse that can cook, if she can reach the stove." Another roar of laughter. Someone whistled. Someone else mooed like a cow. Mercy's stomach twisted, empty and sour. They had taken her from the root cellar that morning, shoved stale water at her, and told her to look grateful when they paraded her in front of the town. She thought she had run out of humiliation. Apparently, she'd been wrong. "Now then, gentlemen," Mitchell called, puffing out his chest, "we'll start the bidding at $5,000 for the McAllister place, all buildings, stock, water rights, and this here girl thrown in for free." A murmur rippled through the crowd. 5,000 was a steep starting point, but it was good land, and they all knew it. 5,000! A cattleman near the front shouted. 6! Another barked almost before Mitchell could raise his gavel. 7! Voices clashed, numbers flying back and forth. The air buzzed with greed and calculation. No one looked at Mercy now. She had become part of the property, like the barn roof or the rusty plow. A nuisance, but included in the bargain. She stared straight ahead at the shimmering heat over the far hills and tried to pretend she was somewhere else. 8 years old, riding fence with her grandfather. 15, laughing in the creek. Anything but a bound, bruised woman being offered as a joke to men who would rather see her dead than at their table. 10,000! Someone shouted. The crowd quieted. That was serious money. Even Mitchell's eyebrows jumped. From the back of the yard, a different kind of silence spread, one made of shifting weight and elbows nudging. A man had stepped out from the line of horses. He was tall enough to make other men look like boys, near 7 feet by the look of him, with shoulders broad as a barn door and a frame built by years of hard living. Long black hair brushed his shoulders, his beard was thick and streaked with silver, and his eyes, when they lifted from under the hat brim, were the gray-green of a storm rolling in over the mountains. Buckskins, a worn rifle, a hunting knife that had seen use, everything about him said, mountain man, not townie. Someone who belonged to the wilderness more than to any street or saloon. For the first time all morning, Mercy felt every gaze slide away from her and lock onto someone else. Mitchell licked his lips. "Do I hear 11,000?" The stranger's voice cut through the dust and heat like an axe through kindling. $20,000, he said, calm and deadly clear, for the land, the house, the stock, and for her freedom written into the deed. Head snapped around. The yard went so quiet Mercy could hear her own heartbeat pound in her ears. She turned, really looking at him now, and found those storm-colored eyes fixed not on the sheriff, not on the crowd, but on her, as if she were not a joke, as if she were not a burden, as if she were a person worth $20,000 and a battle with the whole town. In that held breath between outrage and chaos, between insult and answer, one thought rang through Mercy McAllister's mind. Who is this man? And why, out of everyone under this hard Wyoming sun, is he the first one who looks at me like I'm not something to be thrown in for free? The bidding froze in the air like a shot that hadn't landed yet. Sheriff Mitchell's mouth opened and closed the way a man might react after swallowing a fly. 20,000, he repeated. You out of your mind, Brennan? So the stranger had a name. Rourke Brennan. The name rolled through the crowd in confused whispers. That's twice what the land's worth. He's bluffing. No man carries that much money. He must be crazier than a winter coyote. But Mercy heard none of it. All she could hear was the rush of blood in her ears and the thudding realization that someone, some stranger, had spoken up for her when even neighbors she'd known her whole life wouldn't meet her eyes. Rourke didn't blink. My offer stands, $20,000 for the ranch, but Miss McAllister walks free, no indenture, no obligation. Put her release in writing. Mitchell hesitated, caught between greed and spite. Greed won, just barely. Fine, he said. Sold. 20,000 to the mountain man. The crowd erupted in disbelief. Rourke walked forward, every step measured and quiet. Men parted instinctively, as if something in him warned them not to challenge him. From a leather satchel he poured coins and folded bills onto a barrel until they formed a small mountain. Gold, real gold. Years of wilderness trapping, trading, and surviving, now sitting in the open sun. Mercy didn't understand. Why would a man like that spend such a fortune on land he'd never seen, and on a woman he'd known for less than a minute? Mitchell scribbled down the bill of sale, hands shaking with excitement. Rourke read each line, then jabbed a finger at the sheriff. You add her freedom, every word spelled out, or the deal dies right here. Mitchell muttered curses under his breath, but complied. When Rourke finally tucked the deed inside his coat, he turned to the deputies. Cut her loose? The men looked uncertain. Mitchell shrugged. She's his problem now. A knife flashed, a rope fell, and Mercy swayed forward. Her legs buckled after 3 days in a locked cellar. Before she hit the ground, Rourke caught her, one arm behind her shoulders, the other under her knees. She felt herself lifted effortlessly, carried as if she weighed no more than a sack of feathers. She flinched. She was used to being shoved, mocked, handled roughly. Not this gentleness, not this impossible strength. I've got you, Rourke murmured. His voice was low, steady, warm, like the first sunlight after a long winter. He carried her past the stunned crowd and through the open doorway of the ranch house. For the first time in months, Mercy crossed the threshold without being pushed. The door shut behind them, muting the laughter outside. Inside the kitchen, Rourke set her gently on a chair. The room smelled faintly of dust and old oak, but beneath it was something familiar. Her grandfather's tobacco tin still on the shelf, a chipped mug she'd used every morning for years, the table where he'd taught her how to mend harness leather. Her throat tightened. This was home, the only home she'd ever known, and she had nearly lost it forever. Rourke crouched in front of her, his massive frame folding down until his eyes were level with hers. "Tell me where it hurts." Mercy stiffened, embarrassed. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," he said, voice soft but firm. "Your wrists are raw. Your face is bruised. You look like you haven't slept or eaten in days. No one walks away from that. Fine. Just tell me the truth." No one had asked for the truth in weeks. Her voice cracked. "They locked me in the root cellar after the funeral, said I was collateral for the ranch debts. Sheriff Mitchell said when someone bought the land, they'd either use me for labor or shoot me as a burden." Rourke's expression darkened. Not furious, not yet, but a cold, focused anger that promised danger. "They're never touching you again," he said. "That ends today." He rose and moved to the pantry, gathering food, a loaf of bread, wedges of cheese, slices of dried beef. He poured clean water into a cup and pressed it into her hands. "Eat slow," he reminded her. "Your stomach isn't ready for much." Mercy obeyed, surprised at how good the food tasted. She ate quietly while Rourke leaned against the counter, arms crossed, studying her with an unreadable expression. When she finally set the cup down, she whispered, "What happens now?" "That depends," he said. "What do you want?" The question stunned her. No one had cared what she wanted since the day her parents died. She swallowed hard. "I want to stay. This ranch, it's all I have left of my family. I know every pasture, every hollow, every patch of prairie. I've run this ranch since I was 11. My grandfather relied on me more than anyone." "Then stay," Rourke replied. "Work the ranch with me." "But I can't pay you back," she said. "Not for the money you spent, not for saving me." "I didn't buy you," Rourke said. "I freed you. There's a difference, and I'm not asking for repayment." She blinked. "Then, why did you help me at all?" For the first time, something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. "Because I had a sister," he said. "Her name was Sarah. People mocked her the way they mocked you. She didn't survive it. I couldn't save her." His jaw tightened. "Maybe I can't fix the past, but I won't stand by and watch it happen again." Mercy's breath trembled. No one had ever spoken to her like that, honest, raw, without pity. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll work hard, I promise. Just don't send me away." "I'm not sending you anywhere," Rourke said. "This is your home as much as mine now." Outside, the crowd slowly dispersed, muttering about the mountain man who'd paid a fortune for a ranch and a girl no one else wanted. Inside, something new and fragile and quietly powerful was beginning. A partnership, a promise, a second chance for them both. The sun had dipped low by the time the last rider left the edge of the McAllister property, but Rourke waited until the dust fully settled before stepping back out onto the porch. Mercy joined him, leaning lightly on the doorframe. Her legs were still weak, but her gaze was steady. "Mitchell will come back," she murmured. "Yes," Rourke replied, "but not tonight, and not alone next time." The wind rolled across the prairie, warm and restless, carrying the rustle of dry grass and the faint tang of river water. Mercy's heart twisted. She had been trapped in that cellar for days, her world reduced to darkness and stone. Now everything felt too big, too bright, too uncertain. Inside the house, memories whispered from every corner. Her grandfather's coat still hung on its peg. A carving knife he'd sharpened 1,000 times lay on the counter. The creak of the floorboard beneath Rourke's boot was the same one that had always announced Henry McAllister's return from the barn. It should have brought comfort. Instead, it brought grief so sharp it pressed into her ribs. Rourke noticed. "You don't have to be strong every second," he said quietly. "Grief doesn't disappear because you push it down." Mercy swallowed hard. "I don't know how to stop pushing." Rourke looked at her for a long moment. "Then let me help you learn." He didn't press further. Instead, he stepped off the porch and gestured toward the pastures. "Come with me. If we're going to run this ranch together, you need to show me the land before dark." Mercy hesitated. The idea of walking any distance after days without proper food felt impossible. But she squared her shoulders. "I can do it." Rourke didn't argue. Instead, he fetched a sturdy walking stick from the barn and held it out to her. "Use this. It's not weakness." Mercy accepted it wordlessly. They began walking along the fence line, the fading light painting the fields gold. Rourke's strides were long and easy. Mercy's were slow but determined. He adjusted his pace without drawing attention to it, letting her lead the conversation. "This pasture floods in early spring," she said, pointing with the stick. "Grandfather always moved the cattle to higher ground by late February." Rourke nodded. "Where's the higher ground?" Mercy pointed to a ridge in the distance. "Up there. There's a natural windbreak the cattle like. We kept salt blocks close to the rocks." Rourke followed her gesture. "Show me tomorrow. We'll ride." Mercy's breath hitched. "You want me to ride with you?" "I'll need you to teach me the lay of the land," he said simply. "No one knows this ranch better than you." Simple words, ordinary words. Yet they fell on her like rain after drought. They walked a little farther, past the water trough, and toward the creek where willow trees bent over the current. The sound of the water was soothing, a familiar rhythm Mercy had listened to since childhood. "There's a fishing spot around that bend," she said softly. "Grandfather used to bring me here on hot days. Said the best trout hid beneath the roots." Rourke crouched to look at the bank. He was right. Shade, deep water, slow current. Smart man. Mercy felt her throat tighten at the mention of him. "He was the only person who ever believed in me." Rourke's voice gentled. "Then he'd be glad you're fighting to stay." They continued until the sky turned violet and the first stars blinked awake. Mercy's legs trembled with fatigue, and Rourke stopped immediately. "That's enough for today," he said. "Let's get you inside." By the time they reached the house, Mercy's breath had grown shallow, her steps heavy. She tried to hide it, but Rourke didn't miss a thing. He opened the door for her, lit the lamps, and stoked the hearth until the fire glowed warm and steady. She sank into a chair near the flames, letting the heat soak into her chilled skin. Rourke stepped into the kitchen. "I'll make supper." Mercy blinked. "You cook?" "A man who lives alone in the wilderness learns fast," he said with a faint smile. She watched him work. He moved with surprising grace, cutting onions with practiced motions, filling a pot with water, adding dried herbs from a pouch he kept in his coat. When the stew began to simmer, the scent of sage and pepper filled the room. She hadn't smelled anything that comforting in months. Try, he said gently, placing a bowl in front of her. She took a cautious sip. Warmth spread through her like sunlight. Rourke, this is wonderful. I'm glad. They ate in silence, the crackle of the fire the only sound between them. When Mercy finished, Rourke took her bowl, washed it, and set it carefully on the drying rack. No man had ever served her food before. No man had ever cleaned a dish for her. You don't have to do that, she said softly. Yes, he replied, tone even. I do. The way he said it made her chest tighten. Later, when she tried to stand, her legs nearly gave out. Rourke crossed the room in 2 steps and steadied her with a hand at her back. Let me help. Mercy stiffened. I can walk. I know you can, he said, but you don't have to pretend you're not exhausted. He guided her toward her old bedroom. The door creaked open, revealing the plain pine bed, the faded quilt she'd sewn with her grandfather's help, and her mother's small wooden chest at the foot. It felt like stepping into a memory. Rourke paused at the doorway. Rest. We'll talk tomorrow. She stopped him. Why are you being so kind to me? He looked at her for a long beat, his expression unreadable except for a softness in his eyes. Because you deserve kindness, he said, and because no one should face the world alone. He stepped back, letting her close the door. In the quiet that followed, Mercy pressed her hands to her face and tried not to cry, not out of fear, not out of shame, but because, for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. And safety was its own kind of miracle. Tomorrow would bring work, decisions, and the slow rebuilding of a life she thought she'd lost forever. But tonight, she lay beneath her old quilt and listened to the sound of Rourke Brennan moving quietly through the house. Steady footsteps, the soft clatter of dishes, the sound of a man settling into a place he intended to make home. Morning light touched the ranch house gently, golden and slow, filtering through the thin curtains of Mercy's room. She woke to the faint smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen and the rhythmic creak of floorboards. Heavy, even steps she was already beginning to recognize. Rourke Brennan didn't move like other men. He didn't stomp. He didn't slam doors. He didn't bark orders. For a man nearly 7 feet tall, he moved with surprising care, as though he was always measuring his presence against the world, adjusting so he wouldn't break what didn't need breaking. Mercy rose stiffly. Her legs still ached from yesterday's walk, but the soreness felt strangely good. Proof she was living again instead of simply enduring. She washed her face, braided her hair with fingers that trembled from hunger and exhaustion, then stepped out into the hallway. Rourke looked up from the stove. Morning. He stood over a cast-iron pan, sleeves rolled up, stirring something that smelled hearty and warm. The sight was disorienting, almost tender. A man built like a mountain, cooking breakfast in her grandfather's kitchen. You didn't have to cook, Mercy murmured. You needed rest, he replied, and I need to learn this kitchen if we're going to run this place together. Together. The word glowed softly in her chest. He handed her a bowl of hot oats with dried apples. She took it slowly, her hands brushing his for the briefest moment. Warmth shot up her arm at the contact, surprising, unsteadying. They ate in comfortable silence. Rourke was quiet, but his silence wasn't oppressive. It felt steady, like leaning against a strong wall during a storm. When the bowls were empty, he rose and reached for his coat. We have repairs to make, he said, if you're up to it. I am. He studied her face, checking for hesitation or doubt. When he found none, He nodded. Good. They started with the barn roof. The summer winds had peeled back shingles and loosened nails. Rourke climbed onto the ladder first, testing the rungs, then looked down at her. Hand me the hammer. Mercy passed it up. He worked methodically, muscles flexing beneath his shirt with each controlled swing. He didn't show off. He didn't grunt. He simply worked steady as time. When he climbed down again, he stepped back to let her inspect the repairs. You know this place better than I do, he said. Tell me if it's wrong. She blinked. Most men wouldn't ask my opinion. I'm not most men. Afternoon found them side by side in the chicken yard. Mercy scattered feed while Rourke repaired a section of fencing. When he drove the last nail in, he stepped aside and gestured to her. Check it. Mercy tugged on the slats. It's solid. He gave a faint smile, one corner of his mouth lifting. Good. Don't want your hens wandering off. Something eased inside her then. Something she hadn't realized was knotted. For the first time since her grandfather's death, she felt needed. By evening, exhaustion had set into Mercy's bones. She sank into the porch chair, watching the sky bleed pink and amber across the horizon. Rourke joined her, setting 2 tin cups on the small table between them. Tea, he said. She took a sip. It was simple, mint and a hint of honey. But it warmed something in her that had been cold for months. You did good work today, Rourke said, not looking at her but out at the fields. Mercy shook her head. I barely did anything. You repaired the barn roof, fixed the fencing, hauled water. You showed me every pasture line. You know where this ranch breathes and where it breaks. You kept this place running on your own for years. Don't diminish that. Her throat tightened. No one had praised her in years. Praise was reserved for pretty girls with small waists and feathered hats, not for women shaped like her. Rourke leaned back, one boot braced on the porch rail. Tomorrow we'll start inventory. Tools, tack, cattle count. After that we'll go through the ledgers, and I want you to set the plan for winter prep. Me? Yes, you. Why? You're the owner. I'm the owner, he agreed. But you're the rancher. There's a difference. No one had ever spoken to her like that, like she was capable, valuable, essential. The next days slipped into a rhythm, work at sunrise, lessons at midday, quiet dinners at dusk. Rourke taught her to track prints in soft earth, to reload a rifle with steady hands, to listen for predators by the shape of their silence. Mercy taught him how to mend harness leather, how to check the health of cattle at a glance, how to feel the land the way her grandfather had taught her. He watched her with the kind of attention that could make a woman nervous. But it wasn't hunger, and it wasn't pity. It was respect, the rare, real kind. One evening, after they had finished repairing the corral gate, Rourke straightened with a wince. "You're hurt," Mercy said. "Old injury," he muttered. "Took a fall off a cliff in '71. Landed wrong." Mercy stepped closer, heart pounding. "Sit, please." He hesitated, then lowered himself onto a stump. She knelt beside him, hands gentle but sure as she loosened his boots and checked the swelling. "You should have told me," she murmured. "You had enough to worry about." Mercy shook her head. "We're partners now. That means we look after each other." A shadow of emotion crossed his face. "Haven't had a partner in a very long time." When she finished binding his ankle, Rourke looked down at her. "Thank you, Mercy." Something in the way he said her name, a softness, a quiet reverence, made her pulse thrum in her ears. That night, Rourke surprised her. When it was time for bed, He stopped her at her doorway. "I made something for you." Mercy frowned. "For me?" He nodded toward the opposite end of the hallway. "Come." He opened a door she had kept shut for months, the guest room. Inside, the bed was freshly made. A new quilt lay folded at the foot. The windows were clean. A tiny table held a vase with wildflowers she hadn't even noticed him gathering. "You fix this up?" she whispered. "For you," he said, "in case your room doesn't feel right anymore. Sometimes grief lingers in corners. I wanted you to have a choice." Mercy turned to him, tears stinging her eyes. "Rourke, no one has ever done something like this for me." He shook his head. "They should have." In the quiet of the hallway, something shifted, not spoken, not named, but unmistakable. A warmth, a daring hope, one that frightened Mercy as much as it soothed her. That night, she didn't sleep in the guest room. She chose her old room, because for the first time since her grandfather died, it felt like home again. Over the next weeks, their small daily rituals knitted themselves into something deeper. Rourke always let her eat first. Mercy always filled his coffee cup without him asking. He built her a stronger stool for milking. She mended his coat without telling him. He left an extra blanket folded at her door on cold nights. She added his favorite herbs to the stew. Small things, ordinary things, but they were building something extraordinary, one quiet kindness at a time. And neither of them said it aloud, not yet. But the cabin walls were beginning to feel like they held more than just shelter. They held promise. Autumn settled over the Brennan Ranch in slow amber strokes, coating the hills in gold and copper. The days shortened, the nights grew cool, and Mercy felt, for the first time in months, that the rhythm of life had steadied into something she could trust. But stability on the frontier was always fragile, and peace was never guaranteed when men like Sheriff Mitchell walked the earth. It began subtly. The first hint came when Mercy opened the ledger she'd kept with her grandfather, paper yellowed by time, his handwriting steady and sure. She traced the columns with careful fingers, explaining each notation to Rourke as he leaned over her shoulder. "This line here," she said, pointing, "that's the McAllister water rights. Grandfather secured them with the county in 1878. It guaranteed our access to the creek even during dry years." Rourke nodded. "Good. Water rights make this ranch valuable." Mercy hesitated. "They also make it vulnerable." Rourke's gaze sharpened. "Explain." She flipped to the back of the ledger and withdrew a folded envelope, its edges soft from years of being handled. "This isn't just any water," she said. "Grandfather discovered an underground spring 2 miles east of the main creek. It runs clear even when the rest of the territory goes dry. He wrote to the territorial office about it, but never filed the official deed. He said people would try to take it from us if they knew." Rourke unfolded the letter. The words were faded, but the meaning was unmistakable. A hidden spring, pure, untapped, more valuable than gold in dry years. "Does anyone else know about this?" Rourke asked quietly. Mercy shook her head. "Just Grandfather and me. The day before he died, he told me to keep it secret until I had someone I could trust at my side." Rourke looked at her then, really looked, and something unspoken flickered between them. "You trust me," he murmured. She didn't deny it, but before the moment could deepen, the sound of hooves crashed through the quiet morning. Rourke moved instantly, placing himself between Mercy and the doorway. A single rider approached, Doc Samuel Chen, reins tight in his hands, face grave. Rourke stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. "What's wrong?" Doc Chen dismounted. "I came to warn you. Mitchell's trial is set for next week." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Good. He belongs in prison." Chen shook his head. "You don't understand. Half the town is calling him a martyr. They say you manipulated him, tricked him into losing the McAllister place. Some are whispering that Mercy wasn't freed legally." Mercy froze in the doorway, cold dread sliding down her spine. "That's ridiculous," Rourke snapped. "The marshal confirmed everything." "Yes," Chen said, "but the committee doesn't care about law. They care about power. And they're growing." Rourke lowered his voice. "How many?" "At least 20 men," Chen replied. "Maybe more. Some from town, some from the outlying ranches. They're calling themselves a citizens group committed to protecting frontier values." Mercy swallowed hard. Protecting from what? Chen's expression softened, but his words didn't. "From people like you, Mercy. People they think don't deserve property, freedom, or happiness." Rourke stepped closer to her, shielding her instinctively. "Let them come," he growled. "They'll find out quickly I don't scare." Chen hesitated. There's something else. He retrieved a crumpled piece of paper from his coat. "Found this nailed to my office door this morning." Rourke unfolded it. Mercy saw his shoulders tense. The handwriting was jagged, the message cruel. Justice delayed is justice denied. Brennan stole what wasn't his. Fat Livestock has no business as a wife. Correct the sin, or we will. Signed, the committee. Mercy's breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her chest. "They think I'm stolen property." Rourke crushed the note in his fist. "You're a free woman." "They won't believe that," Chen said softly. "Men like them don't need truth. They need a target." Rourke's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "Let them come. They'll leave in pieces." But Chen placed a hand on the mountain man's shoulder. "Violence will make you the villain they want you to be. This isn't a fight you win with bullets." Rourke jerked away. "I'll do whatever I must to protect Mercy." Doc Chen nodded. "I know, but be careful. The committee isn't impulsive. They're patient, organized. They plan before they strike." Mercy closed her eyes, her breath trembling. She'd barely clawed her way back from darkness. Now another shadow crept toward her life, toward the ranch, toward Rourke. After the doctor rode away, Rourke returned inside. Mercy was still standing where he'd left her, fingers gripping the edge of the table. He approached quietly. "Mercy." She didn't look up. "It's happening again. Just like after Grandfather died, men taking things I can't protect." Rourke reached out slowly, as if approaching a frightened doe. "Mercy, look at me." She lifted her gaze, raw and afraid. "You are not alone," Rourke said. "This ranch isn't unprotected, and neither are you." Tears welled in her eyes. "What if they come for us? For you? Because of me?" Rourke stepped closer. Her breath hitched as his shadow covered hers. "I've faced blizzards, wolves, starvation, and 2 winters trapped in a mountain pass," he said quietly. "But nothing scares me more than the thought of you believing you're a burden." Mercy blinked. "Rourke." "You're worth fighting for," he said. "Worth protecting, worth standing up for. If they want to come after this ranch, they'll find I'm not one man. I'm the mountain at their doorstep." A tear slid down Mercy's cheek. Rourke brushed it away with the back of one finger, a touch so gentle it made her knees weaken. "We'll prepare," he said. "We'll strengthen the fences, secure the barn, make sure the livestock are safe. You'll show me where the hidden spring is. We'll protect it together." "And if they still come," Mercy whispered. "Then we stand side by side," Rourke said, "and they will learn what it means to challenge two people with nothing left to lose but each other." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket against a winter wind. But outside, beyond the golden fields and quiet pastures, the committee was already gathering, already planning, already setting their sights on the Brennan Ranch, and peace, painfully earned, gently growing, began to tremble under the weight of what was coming. The attack didn't come at dawn or at midday when the sun stood bold and bright. It came in the deep, wolf-quiet hours after midnight, when the world was soft, shadows long, and every living thing slept its heaviest sleep. Mercy woke first, not from a sound, but from an absence of sound, a stillness too sharp, too precise, as if the night itself were holding its breath. She sat up slowly, listening. Beyond the thin window glass, the prairie lay dark and unmoving. No wind, no cattle lowing in their sleep, no owls, no insects, nothing. Her heart tightened. The land never slept that deeply unless something unnatural prowled it. She rose, wrapped her shawl around her shoulders, and stepped quietly into the hallway. Rourke's door was already open. He was standing there barefoot, rifle in hand, eyes narrowed like a hunter who smelled danger long before he saw it. "You feel it too?" Mercy whispered. "Yes," he said. "Get behind me." But Mercy didn't move, didn't retreat to safety. Not this time. "Rourke, listen." From outside, faint as breath on frost, came the crunch of footsteps, more than one, slow, controlled, deliberate, coming from the direction of the barn. Rourke's jaw set. "They're here." He started toward the front door, but Mercy grabbed his sleeve. "You can't go out there alone." His voice was low, rough. "I won't have you in danger." "And I won't lose you," she whispered fiercely. "Not to them." For a moment he hesitated. Then he nodded once, an acknowledgment of her courage, her right to stand with him. They moved together to the window. Through the dark they saw shapes, 6, maybe 7 men, fan out around the barn. One carried a lantern with its flame shielded, another held something long and narrow, a torch. Mercy's breath froze. "They're going to burn it." Rourke's hand tightened on his rifle. "Not while I'm breathing." Before he could act, a voice rang out across the ranch yard, cold, amused, confident. "Brennan, step outside." Mercy flinched. She knew that voice. Harlan Cobb, one of the bidders from the foreclosure auction, a man with a mean streak and a vendetta against anyone he couldn't intimidate. Rourke eased the door open just enough to be heard, but not seen. "State your business, Cobb." Cobb laughed, low and ugly. "You stole property that wasn't yours. A fat sow pretending to be a woman. The committee's decided to correct the error." Mercy's stomach twisted in fear and fury. Rourke's voice dropped to lethal stillness. "Mercy is a free woman, my wife, and if you come one step closer to this house, you'll leave in a pine box." Another voice joined in. Bill Harrow, a rancher notorious for violence. "You think the law will save you? Mitchell may be gone, but we're not." The men moved closer, boots crunching over frost-stiff grass. Rourke lifted his rifle, sighting through the crack in the door. Mercy caught his arm. "If you fire now, they'll claim you shot first. They want an excuse to kill you." He breathed hard, torn between fury and restraint. Then she whispered, "Let me speak." Rourke shook his head immediately. "No." But she stepped forward anyway, pulling the door open just enough to reveal herself. shawl wrapped tight, face pale but eyes blazing. "I'm not property," she said, voice carrying across the cold yard. "I'm not livestock. I'm not something you can trade, burn, or take." The men paused, startled to see her standing there. Mercy lifted her chin. "If you want this ranch, you'll have to say my name first. Mercy McAllister. You'll have to look at me. You'll have to admit you came here to terrorize a woman because you fear what you cannot control." Cobb sneered. "We fear nothing." "Then why come in the dark?" she shot back. "Why hide behind numbers? Why threaten a woman instead of facing a man?" A murmur moved through the committee ranks. Uncertainty, a crack in their bravado. Rourke stepped beside her then, towering, rifle ready, presence like a storm building. "You have until the count of 3, he growled, "to get off my land." Harrow barked a laugh. "Or what?" Rourke didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. 1. The men shifted. 2. The torchbearer faltered, flame wavering. 3. Rourke fired not at a man, but at the lantern in Cobb's hand. The bullet shattered the glass, sending burning oil splashing harmlessly into the dirt. The message was clear. If he'd wanted Cobb dead, Cobb would already be bleeding. Silence fell heavy and absolute. Then slowly, reluctantly, the committee began to retreat, muttering threats, promising return but stepping back all the same. Only when the last horse's hoofbeats faded did Mercy's knees begin to tremble. Rourke caught her instantly. "You were brave," he said softly, voice fierce with pride. "Braver than any of them." Mercy clung to him, breath shaking. "They'll come back." "Yes," he said, "they will." He lifted her chin so she had to meet his eyes. "But next time, they won't be facing a frightened woman and a lone man." His thumb brushed gently along her jaw. "They'll be facing a family." The words hung between them, raw, intimate, undeniable. The first light of morning crept over the horizon like a slow exhale, brushing the Brennan Ranch in pale gold. Mercy stood at the porch rail, wrapped in her shawl, watching the color return to a world that had felt terrifyingly dark just hours earlier. Behind her, the door opened with its familiar soft creak. Rourke stepped out, still barefoot, hair unbound, looking like the mountains had carved him for mornings exactly like this, steady, unshaken, and wholly present. "You didn't sleep?" he said. Mercy didn't pretend otherwise. "Neither did you." He came to stand beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Not quite, not yet, but close enough for warmth to pass between them. For a while, they watched the sun climb over the hills. The barn stood strong, the fences unburned, the cattle undisturbed. The committee had struck at nerves, not structures. Mercy let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "They'll return," she whispered. "Yes," Rourke said. "Cowards hate failure. They'll try again, but not the same way." She gripped the rail, knuckles whitening. "I don't want you hurt because of me." Rourke turned, one hand bracing lightly on the rail beside hers, not touching her, but close enough she could feel the nearness like a pulse. "This ranch," he said quietly, "is not mine. It's ours. What they came for last night wasn't land, it was control, and we didn't give it." Mercy's voice trembled. "I was terrified." "You still stood." His tone softened. "Not many people do that." Mercy swallowed hard. "I only stood because you were beside me." Rourke shook his head. "No, Mercy, you stood because you're stronger than they will ever understand." Something inside her cracked open, fragile, luminous. The fear, the exhaustion, the weight of months of cruelty, but beneath it, hope, a quiet, persistent hope that had taken root in this house, in this man, in this life she'd almost lost. Rourke stepped a little closer, the space between them melting like frost under sunlight. "I meant what I said last night," he murmured. "If they come again, they'll face a family. You and me. Together." Mercy's breath caught. The word family echoed inside her, startling in its tenderness. "Rourke." She lifted her gaze to his, and her voice barely held. "Do you truly want that? A life with me? This life? The danger, the whispers, the fight?" His answer was quiet but unwavering. "I want you," he said, "and whatever comes with you." The simplicity of the words shattered her composure. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Silent, unashamed. Rourke reached out, hesitating only an instant before brushing them away with his thumb. "You're safe here," he whispered. "As long as I breathe, you will always be safe here." Mercy leaned into his touch, not fully, not boldly, but enough. Enough for him to feel her trust. Enough for her to feel his promise. The ranch lay quiet beyond them, but the world was no safer than it had been the night before. The committee still lurked in the shadows. Their threats still hung over the land like storm clouds gathering, and yet, in this moment, with the rising sun warming their faces and the distance between them slowly closing, Mercy felt something she hadn't felt since childhood. Belonging, the kind that could grow, the kind that could root deep, the kind that could survive a war if it had to. Hope was fragile, but it was hope all the same. Stories on the frontier were never simple. They were stitched together from hardship and hope, from quiet courage and the kind of love that grows slowly, like roots under winter soil, waiting for spring. If you've listened this far, know this. Every comment you leave reminds us how stories travel across miles, across oceans, across hearts that have never met. Tell me, where in the world are you listening from today? And if you still believe that love can rise even in the harshest places, then don't go far. The next story is already waiting for you.